Samantha's voice. It was supposed to be the trip of a lifetime. A week in paradise, just the four of us. A yacht, the sun, the islands. We'd been waiting for it so long, planning every detail, picturing the perfect vacation. The one, like they say in movies, you remember for the rest of your life. The irony is, that's exactly how it turned out. Only not the way we wanted. The sun stood high at its zenith, flooding the white beaches of the Bahamas with light and making the turquoise waters of the Caribbean shimmer with all shades of precious stones. On the spacious terrace of a modern villa rented for a week, a company of four friends gathered. Chloe Carter, a 27-year-old history enthusiast, looked around at the panorama with delight. "I still can't believe we rented this villa," she laughed, taking a sip of a cold cocktail. Her boyfriend, Ryan Mitchell, a 30-year-old amateur captain, smiled confidently. "And this is just the beginning," he said, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Bahamas, then a short passage to Cuba, and from there into the heart of the Caribbean, all according to plan. To the vacation we'll remember for the rest of our lives," proposed a toast Ethan Cole, 28, an adventurous photographer, raising his glass. His gaze was fixed on his girlfriend, Samantha Hayes. Samantha, 26, a popular blogger, smiled back at him, but a shadow of unease flickered in her eyes. "Just let's keep the dangerous adventures to a minimum, okay?" she asked. Everyone laughed. The first days were exactly as she wanted. Perfect. Snapshots of their holiday changed one after another like in a glossy magazine. Cheerful diving among coral reefs, long walks along deserted beaches, warm evening gatherings on the terrace under the starry sky. And then came the morning when they left the cozy villa and boarded the luxurious rented yacht called Sea Dream. The camera follows them into the crimson sunset, and day turns into the next. The morning in the open sea was flawless. The Sea Dream glided smoothly over the azure surface. The sun was warm, and a light breeze carried the salty scent of the ocean. Samantha, comfortably settled on deck, was recording stories for her blog, commenting on the incredible beauty of the scenery. Ethan stood at the rail with his professional camera, the sound of the shutter occasionally breaking the soothing silence. Chloe was reading a book about pirate legends of these waters. At the helm stood Ryan, proud and focused. Suddenly, he froze, bringing binoculars to his eyes. "Hey, do you see that?" His voice sounded tense. They all turned. Ethan lowered his camera. "What is it, Captain?" "I don't know. Some kind of ship." Ethan took the binoculars from him. Through the lenses, a strange sight appeared. An old black sailing ship with tattered, as if time-rotted sails. It sat motionless on the water, though there wasn't the slightest sign of calm. Something alien and ominous emanated from it. "Strange," Samantha frowned, looking at the navigation tablet. "The system shows no vessels in this sector. It's empty here. The nearest ship is a tanker, 20 miles away." Chloe looked up from her book, her eyes alight with curiosity. "Maybe it's a real ghost ship?" she asked breathlessly. "Books say they've been seen in these waters hundreds of times." Samantha immediately started recording video on her phone, pointing it at the mysterious silhouette. "This is just like in Pife movies," she exclaimed, her initial anxiety replaced by the excitement of a blogger who'd found a sensation. "Maybe it's some kind of tourist reconstruction." "There are no tourist attractions of that scale in these waters," Ryan replied grimly, never taking his eyes off the sailing ship. "And it looks way too real." Ethan clicked the camera shutter again, excitement already burning in his eyes. "Let's get closer. Come on, what if we find treasure? Pirate gold!" Despite Ryan's objections and Samantha's bad feeling, Ethan's excitement and Chloe's curiosity won out. They lowered a small motorboat into the water and headed towards the mysterious vessel. As they approached, the sailing ship seemed ever more massive and menacing. Its dark silhouette completely blocked out the sun. From a drone's view, their tiny boat would look like a speck beside a slumbering sea monster. As the closer they got, the thicker the silence became. "It's too quiet here," Chloe whispered, wrapping herself in a towel despite the heat. "I really don't like this," Samantha agreed nervously, glancing around. They moored to the side and with difficulty threw up a rope ladder, climbing aboard one by one. Their feet touched wet, almost black planks, aged by time and moisture. It smelled of rot, salt, and something else, a heavy, stagnant odor of the hold. Thick ropes lay scattered across the deck, creaking softly, though there was not the slightest bit of calm. The entire hull was thickly encrusted with small shells, as if it had spent decades on the ocean floor. Stepping cautiously, they moved deeper into the ship. The silence pressed on their ears. The only sounds were their own footsteps and anxious breathing. Ethan and Ryan turned on powerful phone flashlights. Beams of light revealed rusty cannons welded to the deck and old, dried-out barrels. In a far corner, covered with centuries of dust, stood 3 massive chests. "Looks like we really did find a treasure room," Ryan said with a nervous grin, stepping up to the nearest chest. He struggled to lift the heavy, rusted lid. The flashlight beam illuminated the contents, and Samantha screamed. The chest was filled to the brim with human skulls and blackened bones, densely mixed with seashells and clumped seaweed. "Oh God, close it! Close it now!" Samantha shouted, recoiling. At that moment, the ship's hull shuddered, as if from a powerful underwater jolt. From above, on deck, came a deafening crack. The empty, tattered sails suddenly filled with an invisible wind, stretched tight like strings. And then they heard footsteps, slow, dragging, coming from right above their heads. Fear froze them in place. They stood still, afraid to breathe. The footsteps stopped. From the dark corridors of the hold, beyond the reach of their lights, figures began to emerge. Tall, unnaturally thin silhouettes in decayed, salt-eaten naval uniforms. Their faces were hidden in shadow, but pale green fire burned in their empty eye sockets. Pirate ghosts. "We need to get out, now." Ethan was the first to snap out of it. The ghosts moved slowly, but they were many, and they surrounded the intruders, cutting off the path to the ladder. Ryan, shoving one of them, his hand passed through the translucent body, feeling only icy cold, rushed to a side exit they had seen earlier. Fleeing, they ended up in another part of the hold. And here, a new shock awaited them. In the middle of the room stood several more chests, but this time their lids were open. They were filled to the brim with sparkling gold coins, necklaces with gemstones, massive goblets and ornaments. The flashlight beams reflected off the treasures, flooding the hold with a warm, tempting glow. Amazingly, as soon as they entered, the ghosts vanished. The tense, oppressive atmosphere instantly dissipated, replaced by calm. "We're rich. Not just rich, filthy rich," Chloe whispered, in awe, forgetting her fear and plunging her hands into the heap of gold. Greed flared in Ryan's eyes. "Help me gather it, quickly," he ordered, feverishly stuffing coins and jewels into his backpack. They decided the ghosts guarded the bones, not the gold, that the danger had passed and they'd been given the chance of a lifetime. They were wrong. This wasn't a reward. It was a bait. At first, it was just a faint tremor running through the ship's hull. Then, underwater next to the sailing ship, a huge, colossal shadow glided by, blocking out the sun. "What is that?" Samantha managed to shout, looking out to the deck.
Her answer was a deafening splash. From the turquoise depths burst a giant, glistening tentacle as thick as the ship's mast. It crashed onto the deck with a thunderous crack, smashing debris and rigging. A second, third, and fourth followed. The tentacles grabbed gold-filled backpacks and crates as eagerly as they grabbed people. Ryan, the last to run from the hold with a backpack full of gold, didn't take a single step before one of the tentacles wrapped around him and yanked him under the water with monstrous force. A fountain of spray mingled with sea foam. Ethan, Samantha, and Chloe froze in horror on the deck. And there, among the wreckage, the pirate ghosts stood again. They were motionless, like spectators in a theater of horror. They didn't attack. They waited. From their ranks stepped the captain. His face was half decayed, but in his eyes burned the same green fire of authority. Slowly, he raised his bony hand and pointed at the survivors. Obeying the silent command, one of the tentacles slammed into the deck beside them, scattering them in different directions. Around them, a true storm began. The sky darkened. The water churned, and the wind howled, mixing with death cries. The camera catches Ethan and Samantha clinging desperately to a piece of wreckage. "Hold on," Ethan shouted, trying to be heard over the roar of the elements. But in the next moment, a massive tentacle wrapped around him and dragged him into the black abyss. Samantha let out a desperate scream, but her voice was drowned out by the roar of the storm and the crash of the waves. The black sailing ship, breaking apart, sank beneath the waves, taking with it the screams, the treasures, and the flashlight beams, which went out one by one. Dawn. Thick fog lay over the water. A small fishing boat slowly moved through it. Ahead, the fishermen saw a familiar silhouette. It was the Sea Dream, their luxury yacht drifting slowly in the ocean. On deck, no one. Absolute, dead silence. "Did you see what I saw?" one fisherman asked the other, his voice trembling. "Last night? That black ship and—" "Best forget it," the second, an old sailor, cut him off, looking at the empty yacht with superstitious fear. "And don't tell anyone. These waters take their payment." The camera slowly rises over the sea, leaving behind the fisherman and the battered Sea Dream. It peers into the depths beneath the water's surface. There, in the dark abyss, a colossal shadow moves slowly, with countless writhing tentacles.